Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise? All right, everybody take some rubbers. Jumbo guys! So today I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic. I want to talk to you about one of my favourite films of the noughties, and it is the high school comedy directed by Mark Waters and written by none other than Tina Fey herself, and it is Mean Girls. Yep, I am that gay, but not too gay to function. A film that has aged remarkably since its debut back in 2004. The plot is very simple. It's about a teenage girl called Katie Heron, who's played by Lindsay Lohan in probably her most iconic role to date. She's grown up in Africa all her life, and she's been homeschooled by her two zoologist parents. The family then moves to Illinois, and now Katie must figure out how to survive in a regular high school. She's socially adopted by a group of gorgeous, cool girls that are known as the Plastics. But she slowly learns that there's more to these girls than their glamorous personas, particularly the queen bee of these girls, Regina George, played by Rachel McAdams. This isn't just a fun film that spawned a million memes and expressions, on Wednesdays we wear pink, but it's actually an important film, and one that I would say is an absolute must-watch. So here's why everyone should watch Mean Girls. You can't sit with us! So every decade has one teenage film that really defines the era of that time. For the 80s, it was The Breakfast Club. The 90s was Clueless, and the noughties was Mean Girls, which came as a surprise because Mean Girls was only met with lukewarm response when it first came out. But as time went on, Mean Girls managed to find its way into the zeitgeist as one of the most quotably referenced films of the last 20 years.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
On a similar level to Anchorman, and even more so than films like The Dark Knight.
She doesn't even go here!
Don't pretend you haven't sent a gif of "boo, you whore," or "I'm a mouse, duh," or "that is so fetch" in a WhatsApp group chat. You know you have done. Part of the reason for this longevity comes down to Tina Fey's script. Yes, it's a teen movie, but her signature blend of sincere and silly really shines through, and that can be appreciated at any age. That moment we see Regina George in that slutty bunny outfit for Halloween, and all you see is her dad's reaction. That is brilliant. And also that moment where they're doing the Jingle Bell Rock routine and there's that thigh slap and all you see is Neil Finn's reaction. That is bang on parental humor. Witnessing your children having their own sexual desires but also advertising them is a difficult pill to swallow, but it's also hilarious to see. My own dad even laughed so hard at that moment when we watched this together. Mean Girls' script is also a smart commentary on that sweet 16 age in life where everyone wants to be young, beautiful, popular, and idolized. The Regina Georges of the world. We all knew them growing up. The girls that would part the hallways and school corridors like the Red Sea. Regina George's introduction in this film even feels like a Mariah Carey entrance at one of her concerts, carried in by her beloved worshippers like some diva-esque goddess. And everybody on the social spectrum acknowledges her magnetism. From the cool kids to the bottom feeders to even the teachers, everybody acknowledges Regina George's power because she embodies that internalized aspirational desire for beauty, youth, and wealth. And it's evident throughout this movie that everyone that meets Regina George becomes obsessed with her in one form or another. Katie even says, "Even though I hated Regina, I still wanted her to like me." That's a very apt admission. Gretchen Wieners nearly has a breakdown because her self-worth is so defined by how much Regina likes her. Even Regina's mom and little sister are obsessed with being more like Regina, changing their behavior to simulate that sweet 16 age in life where everything seems so perfect. And even Janice Ian becomes obsessed with her. Even though she doesn't idolize Regina, she still is spending all her time and energy trying to sabotage her. And what's hilarious is that an act of sabotage actually can't hurt Regina's image. She manages to make holes in her tank top look like a fashion trend. She is untouchable. So whether for positive or negative reasons, there are individuals that we all become obsessed with in some way. Even those who, like me, were seriously uncool in high school, there is that shared understanding of wanting to be part of that cool inner circle, even if you may hate them at the same time. And no matter how innocent we may seem, everybody at school bitches about someone behind their backs. Faye's script has those universal high school moments which help you to connect to these characters. We relate to them, and that's why we develop an attachment to them. And another reason why Mean Girls has become so beloved is because it perfectly captures the essence of the time it was made. Mean Girls came out in 2004, which was just a few years prior before the big social media boom and wave of smartphone technology. In a sense, it was a simpler time because teens weren't obsessed with Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat. This was the day of the four-way phone conversation. At the risk of sounding like an old fart, those were the good old days. But the teen issues and angst of today's generation are still present in Mean Girls. The idea of striving for social acceptance, figuring out who you are and where you belong, feeling totally alone amongst the masses, constantly worrying about body image and what people think of you. And the burn book itself actually acts as a pre-digital precursor to cyberbullying. So thematically, Mean Girls looks at issues that are universal, but its approach to looking at its themes borders on the absurd and the fantasy, similar to the trademark wit of Faye's later work that she would do on 30 Rock. The cutaway gag to Coach Carr teaching sex ed, the documentary-styled interviews of the school populace describing Regina George, and the comparison to the kids as wild jungle animals. It's irreverent, silly fun with relatable issues at the core. In short, it's very Tina Fey. Another reason why Mean Girls has become such a hit over time is because it's an outstanding female-driven ensemble comedy, which launched the careers of many of its female stars. Arguably, you could say Lindsay Lohan burned out after this film, but Rachel McAdams, Amanda Seyfried, and obviously Tina Fey all went on to A-list stardom. And there was all this fuss made back in 2012 that Bridesmaids was the first female-driven comedy to be both critically loved and commercially successful. But I would make the argument, even though Mean Girls wasn't critically loved when it came out, it has become more loved over time, flying under the radar as a misunderstood masterpiece at the time. Because this film did gross over $129 million worldwide on a budget of $17 million. Arguably, Mean Girls was a trendsetter for Bridesmaids. Side note, Bridesmaids is also one of those films that has become a poster child for memes and GIFs.
Well, you're really doing it, aren't you? You're just shitting in the street.
And what's truly remarkable is that all the characters, even though they are labeled as plastics, are all very fleshed out. They all have their own distinct personalities, even though they're seen as a collective group. They all have varying degrees of intelligence.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, but best of all, they all have their own flaws and insecurities. Despite their seemingly elevated social status, they all still struggle with their own problems. Acceptance, body image, status. This makes them complex, layered, and relatable. So this is why Mean Girls has stood the test of time and has become an important film. Even though it presents itself as a light-hearted teen comedy, its themes touch on a number of important issues that aren't limited to those who went through adolescence in the noughties.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
Anybody from any age group can still relate to Mean Girls because Mean Girls and Mean Boys are a part of the high school experience. But Mean Girls doesn't have one-dimensional characters that bully or make fun of other characters just to the extent of making a joke. It offers the audience an insightful look at body image, social acceptance, and high school politics. The marvel of this film is that it's shallow in context, but deep in substance when you watch it. To summarize, it's so totally fetch. So give it a watch. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to let me know what your favorite Mean Girls quotes are in the comments section below, or you can catch me here on Twitter for more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture. I'm Luke Iffield, and I'll see you next time. You go, Glen Coco!